Okay, good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments on it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor. So this weekend features the Preds in two midday games. So instead of doing a podcast for each game, I'm going to wrap up the weekend games here on Friday. I've been trying to track a little bit of the trades that are going on. I think the Preds, they just announced another trade as I was getting ready to come in here. So all of the data on the trades that I've got is not going to be up to date. I apologize for that. Just with an early game tomorrow, I didn't think that I would be able to get in here and get this done, and then the Sunday game as well. So definitely wanted to get this podcast out, let you know what to expect. I've been looking forward to this. It's a little unfortunate. The podcast to this date has only been doing home games, and so I was excited to be able to start looking at away game data. And, there's some interesting things that I saw in the data. I definitely didn't get as much time as I would have liked to look at the data, but, we'll explore that as we go. Another thing to note, Sunday's opponent is playing tonight, so that's another piece of data that I won't have to include. However, trends being what they are, and the away trends look rather consistent, I can still comment on all of that. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it. Okay, this weekend's the game summary, March 9th and 10th. Saturday's afternoon opponents are the Columbus Blue Jackets, 22-31-10, 12-16-4 at home. The Blue Jackets are in last place in the Metropolitan Division with 54 points, 10 points behind 7th place Pittsburgh. They are tied for last place in the Eastern Conference with Ottawa. So that puts them 18 points out of the second wildcard spot with a game in hand. As they have 19 games left, this puts them right about where my first out of the playoffs calculation comes in, which is being out of a playoff spot by more points than you have games left. They have 19 games left. They're 18 points. Come Saturday night, Preds win, no overtime victory, no points for the Blue Jackets. I think we can safely write them off. But it's going to be a tough one, right? Okay, they are 5-5 in their last 10 games and beat Edmonton Thursday night 4-2. They got 3 goals in the first, with Edmonton getting a goal in the second and third, and Columbus getting an empty net goal with about 20 seconds left. In the last 10 games, they have wins over Edmonton, Vegas, and the New York Rangers, all at home. All 3 of these teams are currently in the playoffs, so they are dangerous at home despite their record. They traded for PK Subban's brother, goaltender Malcolm Subban, from St. Louis. He's been assigned to their minor league club in Cleveland. They also traded defenseman Jakub Zboril and a third-round 2027 pick for defenseman Andrew PK. I think that's how you say it, from Boston. Nothing seems that interesting about the trade. PK did play at Notre Dame from 2016 to 2019. Sunday afternoon's opponent, yes, we get to play back-to-back noonish games with travel in between, are the Minnesota Wild, 30-27-6, 15-12-4 at home. The Wild are in 6th place in the Central Division with 66 points. They are 7 points out of the second wildcard spot and even with games played. They are also 5-5 in their last 10 games, not including tonight's game at Colorado. They enter tonight's game on a two-game winning streak, San Jose and Arizona, which is really just taking care of business and not that interesting. It would be more interesting had they lost to them. Before that, they had a 3-game losing streak, Carolina, Nashville, and St. Louis, all 3 teams that are ahead of them in the playoffs. They did beat Edmonton in Edmonton back on February 23rd, that being their only recent win against a current playoff consideration team. It looks like everybody we're playing is beating Edmonton. So both teams we're playing this weekend have both beaten Edmonton recently. The Wild traded forward Pat Maroon for the Bruins forward Luke Toporowski and a conditional 6th-round pick this year. In a trade of forwards with the New York Rangers, they receive Turner Elson for Nick Patan. Elson has been assigned to the minor league club in Iowa. Further, they traded forward Brandon Duhaime for a 3rd-round pick in 2026 from Colorado. The Preds are 36-25-3, 18-10-2 on the road. They beat Buffalo last night 4-2. At home with the hat trick to Forsberg. Recovering after having their 8-game winning streak come to an end Tuesday night. They start a 4-game road trip this Saturday. Their last road trip, they won all 5 games. The Preds are in the number 1 wildcard spot with 75 points. They are 2 points ahead of Vegas, who also has a game in hand. Vegas plays Detroit Saturday night, and if tied, the Knights get the leg up on the Preds, so the Preds need to keep ahead of Vegas. The Preds are 8 points behind Colorado for the 3rd spot in the division, with the same number of games played. The Preds are 8 points ahead of the Flames, Kraken, and Blues. Calgary and Seattle have 2 games in hand, and St. Louis has 1. In trade news, the Preds have acquired winger Jason Zucker from Arizona for a 6th-round draft pick this year. Zucker played for Preds coach Burnett when Burnett was an assistant coach for the Minnesota Wild. On Thursday, the Preds picked up Anthony Beauvillier from Chicago, making Nashville his 4th team in 2 years, the Islanders, Vancouver, and Chicago being the other 3. The Preds also traded Trennan and rights to defenseman Graham Sward for defenseman Jeremy Hansel and a 3rd-round pick next year. Saturday's matchup. Saturday is the first of 2 meetings with the Blue Jackets. The Preds made a couple of trades, so their lineups this weekend could be a little problematic with new people on the roster. The Blue Jackets, as of this podcast, have made 2 trades, most likely with more to come. Saturday's game could be very wide open, with players basically auditioning for next year for the Blue Jackets. Again, recently they have been very dangerous at home. Sunday's matchup. Sunday is the last of 4 meetings with the Wild. The Preds are 2-1, with the loss being at home in their first meeting back in November. Both home games, the final score was 6-1. In the away game, the final score was 3-2, with the Wild getting 1 goal in both the second and third periods, bookending Nashville's 3 third-period goals. Thus, in that game, the first goal was scored in the second period by the opponent. But the Preds won. Okay? I keep trying to poo-poo that first goal advantage. However, when I get to the stats on the road, which is coming up, oh boy. So anyway, so the first 2 games, or the 2 games at home, the final score was 6-1, 1 being a loss, 1 being a win. This is the second away game. It would be fun if the final score was 3-2. However, I would prefer the Preds to win. So we'll see how that goes. The Preds on the road. What can we look for from the Preds on the road? Well, they're 18-12-2 on the road. And since January 1st, they're 9-3-1. So overall, they look pretty good on the road. They are pretty even on how they perform in each period. In the first period, they're 11-9-10. The second period, 13-12-5. The third period, 10, 11, and 9. Overtime, 1, 2, and 2. And in shootouts, they're 2 and 0. So the only thing that really is not fairly even is the number of ties in the second period. Second period, 13, 12, and 5. The other periods, all the win, lose, and tie for that period is pretty even. So the starkest data point that I see, here we go. I'm strapping in, I'm putting on my seat belt here because you guys are going to hear me say it. The starkest data point, it hurts me to say, is that when they get the first goal, they are 14-3-1. 14-3-1, getting the first goal on the road. Now, that's crazy. They are 11-3-1 if the first goal comes in the first period, and 3-0 if the first goal comes in the second period. If they don't get the first goal, they're 4-7-1. So it's much stronger for the Preds if they get the first goal on the road. So there you go. You've heard me say it. The first goal, that's pretty important. That's pretty stark. That's looking through all the data. That is the one thing that really jumps out to me. If they win one period, they are 5-6. If they lose one period, they're 8-1. They have not yet tied all three periods on the road. At home, they're 2-0 when they tie all three periods. In their last road game against Anaheim, which they won the end of 5 games on that road trip that they did really well on, they tied the first 2 periods and won the third. No scoring was in the first, 1 goal in both the second, 1 goal for each team in the second, and the Preds got 3-1 in the third period, including an empty net goal. Tying the first 2 periods on the road, they are 1-1. Their loss came to Boston. In that game, both teams scored 1 goal in both the first and second periods, with the Bruins getting 1 goal in the third. That was the third game of the season. We've come a long way. Yeah, it's very limited data points. But anyway, that's the way that game played out. Hopefully, we'll get 2 wins out of the weekend. Look for the Preds to get the first goal of the game in the first period in both games, and victory is ours. You heard it. I said it. Thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor, and you've been listening to Predators Proclivity.